Hello, learners. I am once again welcoming you all in my lecture series on electromagnetic theory for Physics 2, third semester BTech course. And the streams under consideration is Computer Science and Engineering as well as Information Technology. Today, we will start the lecture 8 on electromagnetic theory. Now, let us take a look what is there. So we are doing the submodule 4.02 of the module 4. It covers the magnetostatics part, and there we have 3 lectures. Incidentally, today we are going to start our lesson with the third lecture. This third lecture will cover the Ampere's circuital law, the integral and the differential form, both we will discuss. Then we will go for magnetic scalar potential and the magnetic vector potential. Now, the questionnaire which we will address today in our lesson is the equivalence between a current circuit and a magnetic shell. What about that? Before I'm going to Ampere's circuital law, we will take a look at the equivalence between a current circuit and a magnetic shell. Next, we will go for Ampere's circuital law. What about that? Then we will address its integral and differential form, how to get them, and what about their specification. Why do we need both of them? Next, we will define the magnetic vector potential and its specialties. Then we will search for magnetic scalar potential. What about that? Then we will go for few questions which are set in previous years in the universities. Okay. Now, in the last class, we have gone through the Biot-Savart's law, and there we have proved that no isolated magnetic monopole exists. Now, in case of electrostatics, we have seen that there are two basic laws. One is the Coulomb's law and other is the Gauss's law. And I already told you from the very beginning that in magnetostatics, we also compare each and every point wherever possible with electrostatics. That means in the last class, we have delivered on Biot-Savart's law, and from there we got the idea that no isolated magnetic monopole exists. That means magnetic lines are closed lines. Now, today we will look at this phenomenon in a little bit different way. That means in the form of equivalence between magnetic shell and the current circuit, and from there we will try to get the idea about the second law in magnetostatics, that is the Ampere's circuital law. Now, before going to Ampere's circuital law, so let us take a look that what about equivalence between a magnetic shell and current circuit. It is required to examine the lines of force due to a current flowing in a closed loop of wire. Examine the lines of force due to a current flowing in a closed loop of wire. And then it is found that the loop behaves like a thin magnetic shell. Current carrying closed loop behaves like a thin magnetic shell with south pole on the face where current flows clockwise and north pole on the face where current flows anti-clockwise. So let us take a look. If we examine the lines of force due to current flowing in a closed loop of wire, it is found that the loop behaves like a thin magnetic shell with south pole on the face where current flows clockwise in the loop and north pole on the face where current flows anti-clockwise. Now, how to realize the things? Let us take a look here. So first consider a closed loop PQRST through which the current I is flowing. Let us now divide the entire loop, obviously theoretically, say, into a large number of small meshes through which the same current I is flowing and in the same direction as through the entire loop. Definitely, the magnetic effect due to the current flowing along any side of any mesh, say PQRS, will be exactly cancelled by the current flowing in the adjacent mesh but in the opposite direction. Through each and every mesh, as the same current is flowing as through the entire loop and in the same direction, so it is found that the current flowing through any side of a mesh is exactly cancelled by the equal and opposite current of the adjacent mesh. So this will holds for each and every mesh throughout. Only the uncompensated currents will be there along the loop itself, along the boundary of the loop itself. All other currents in different sides of the adjacent meshes will cancel out each other. If you just take a look, similarly here also, it will come through this side and it is coming the opposite way. Okay, that means only effective current which remains, that is uncompensated, only at the boundary round the circuit. So we can say that each of these small meshes is equivalent to a small circular current. Okay, giving a magnetic field equal to that produced by a shell of same area. So this circular current loop inside this main loop we can consider to be equivalent to magnetic shell of same area, and if we combine them we will get the entire single shell of strength I whose boundary coincides with the circuit PQRSP. That means we are getting the equivalence between a magnetic shell and a current circuit. So each of these small meshes is considered to be small circular current equivalent to, giving rise to magnetic field which is equal to that produced by a small magnetic shell of same area. That means when you sum up them, what you will find? Their combination will give rise to a single shell of strength I whose boundary exactly coincides with the circuit, closed circuit, that is PQRSP, through which the same current I is flowing. So this is the equivalent between a magnetic shell and a current circuit. That means a current flowing in any closed circuit produces the same magnetic effect in its neighborhood as an equivalent magnetic shell whose boundary exactly coincides with the circuit in which the current flows. Obviously, the strength of the uniform shell being numerically equal to the current in the circuit that is found from above. And this result is enunciated by Ampere way back in 1823, which is termed as Ampere's law. Actually, which was rather termed as Ampere's law. So once more, let us take a look at this statement. The conclusion what Ampere found. A current flowing in any closed circuit produces the same magnetic effect in its neighborhood as an equivalent magnetic shell whose boundary coincides with the circuit in which the current flows, the strength of the uniform shell being numerically equal to the current flowing in the circuit. And this is nothing but Ampere's law, which was given way back by Ampere way back in 1823. Now, in right now, whatever is called as Ampere's circuital law, is it related to this Ampere's law, what we found from equivalence between a current circuit and a magnetic shell? Let us now explore it. So Ampere's circuital law, basically I already mentioned, it is another method like the Biot-Savart's law, to calculate the magnetic field due to a given current distribution. Now, in electrostatics, we know that Gauss's law is considered as one of the basic laws, like the Coulomb's law, where we consider the flux of the electric field through a closed surface is equal to the total charge enclosed by the surface divided by free space permittivity. Now, in case of magnetic induction, magnetic charge does not exist. So, in the same form of Gauss's law, we cannot get any equivalent law in magnetostatics. But here exists the relation between the magnetic induction at points on a closed curve and the net current through the area bounded by the curve, which is known as Ampere's circuital law. And I hope all of you are understanding why I have gone through the equivalence between a current circuit and a magnetic shell, because here no magnetic charge exists. So there exists a relation between the magnetic induction at points on a closed curve and the net current through the area bounded by the curve, that is in the form of Ampere's circuital law. That means formally, what about the statement of Ampere's circuital law, more commonly known as what? It states that in a magnetic field due to a steady current, the work done in taking a unit magnetic pole round a closed path linking the current is equal to mu naught times the current strength in ampere, where mu naught is free space permeability. Look at the statement once more, very, very important. Actually, whatever I told here, and here, everything is related. Just take a look. Ampere's circuital law states that in a magnetic field due to a steady current, the work done in taking a unit magnetic pole round a closed path linking the current is equal to mu naught times the current strength in ampere, where mu naught is free space permeability. Here you consider that current flowing in a closed circuit produces the same magnetic effect in its neighborhood as an equivalent magnetic shell whose boundary coincides with the circuit in which the current flows, and strength of the shell is equal to the current in the circuit. What you are telling here, that in a magnetic field due to a steady current, the work done in taking a unit magnetic pole round a closed path, that means here also the same thing, boundary you considered, linking the current is equal to mu naught times the current strength in ampere. So obviously we are introducing mu naught here. Mu naught means the magnetic material's constant, that is free space permeability. So I think all of you are now understanding that this one what we got and now what is stated here, both are similar. Okay. Now let us establish that Ampere's circuital law. For that purpose, we are considering a conductor carrying a current I. Let us consider a conductor carrying a current I, where field B, the magnetic field B, at any point is in the plane of this paper, that means slide, and perpendicular to a distance A from the conductor XY. So, XY is a current carrying conductor carrying current I, from which at a distance A, we are considering a magnetic field B at any point, which is in the plane of this slide, that is plane of the paper. Now, let us consider that B makes an angle theta with an element dl of a closed path surrounding this current carrying conductor. So, theta is the angle which is made between B and dl, a small element of path length of this closed path surrounding the current carrying conductor. So, the work done in displacing through this distance dl to this element dl by a unit magnetic pole in this path linking the current obviously will be B dot dl. So the total work done in displacing a unit magnetic pole through dl in the path linking the current is B dot dl. B dot dl means B dl into cos theta, where theta is the angle already intimated. Now, if d phi is the angle subtended by dl at the position of the conductor, listen very carefully. Two angles we are considering here, theta, now here d phi. If d phi is the angle subtended by the current element dl at the position of the conductor at any point, then obviously dl cos theta, this is nothing but dl cos theta, and that is equal to a into d phi. So dl cos theta, because this is dl, you consider this as theta. So what about this? This is dl cos theta, and from here it is a into d phi. So you can write it as a into d phi. So dl cos theta equal to a into d phi. From our school level geometry, we know it. So line integral of B around the closed path. Now previously you considered only through a small element of length dl. Now you are considering the line integral throughout the closed path. That means the total work done in carrying a unit magnetic pole once down this closed path, okay, linking the current carrying conductor. It will be given by closed loop B dot dl. Now B dot dl means B dl cos theta. So what about dl cos theta? That is equal to a into d phi. So closed loop B into a into d phi. Now what about the value of B? B is nothing but the magnetic field produced by the current I at a distance a from it. According to Biot-Savart's law, the expression is mu naught I by 2 pi a. So this is the magnetic field produced at some point due to a current carrying conductor I at a due to a current carrying conductor carrying current I at a distance a from it. So it is mu naught I by 2 pi a into a d phi. Now these two a will cancel out and we will get mu naught I by 2 pi. Everything is constant, so we are taking it outside the closed loop integration, and inside we have the d phi. Inside we have the d phi. But closed loop d phi is nothing but the total angle subtended by the radial line from the conductor to dl. Closed loop d phi. This is d phi. So it is the total angle subtended by the radial line. These are radial lines. So total angle subtended by the radial lines from the conductor to dl during a complete round trip of a unit magnetic pole, as I already mentioned. This is the total angle. What about that? This is nothing but 2 pi. So closed loop d phi means 2 pi. So what we are getting? B dot dl equal to mu naught I. Closed loop integration B dot dl equal to mu naught I, the so-called Ampere-Sarkitel law. Closed loop integration B dot dl equal to mu naught I, the so-called Ampere-Sarkitel law. Mind it, here line integral is independent of the shape of the path, any arbitrary shape of the path we have taken, and the position of the conductor also arbitrary. Position of the conductor is arbitrary. So let us now take a look at this line integration once more. B dot dl closed loop integration equal to mu naught I. Just take a look at the last page. What about the statement we have used? That in a magnetic field due to a steady current, the work done in taking a unit magnetic pole round a closed path linking the current is equal to mu naught times the current strength in ampere, where mu naught is free space permeability. So we got the same expression, same statement in the form of this mathematical expression, which is well known Ampere-Sarkitel law. Okay. Now, in terms of line integral, This Ampere-Circuital law you can state in a much more simplified way too, as the line integral of magnetic field vector around a closed path is mu naught times the total current enclosed by the path. Simply you can write it or you can state it. That line integral of the magnetic field vector around a closed path is mu naught times the total current enclosed by the path. So, lot of statements I have given, and because of that I'm trying that so that you can relate each and every one with others. That's why I have given. Now it is up to you which statement you will give. Formally there are two statements in integral form for Ampere's law. One is this: the line integral of magnetic field vector around a closed path is mu naught times the total current, or the previous one: the work done in taking a unit magnetic pole once round a closed path, linking the current, is equal to mu naught times the current strength in ampere. And definitely this is related very much to the equivalence between current circuit and a magnetic shell. Now, this law can be used to calculate the magnetic induction for the cases whereby symmetry B is constant along some path. Just take a look. This law we can use to calculate the magnetic induction for the cases whereby symmetry B is constant along some path. I think all of you can remember in electrostatics, we mentioned that Gauss's law is also used in the same cases whereby symmetry you can get the surface integral of the electric field, and from there you can find out the electric field itself, but provided the system gives you some symmetry. Here also, in case of the Ampere's law, B is constant along some path because of some symmetry. That means the calculation using B will be simplified compared to Biot-Savart's law. Though we are not using the application of electric field or magnetic field, that is the Gauss's law and the Ampere's law, in case of electrostatics and magnetostatics as per our syllabus. In the syllabus, the application part is not there because you students have done the applications in your 12th standard. Okay. Now, if the path does not enclose any current, very interesting one. If the path does not enclose any current, so I will be 0. Naturally, what you will get? B dot dl equal to 0. That means when the closed path does not enclose any current, there will be B dot dl to be 0, closed loop integration. And I think all of you can remember in case of Gauss's law, we also encountered similar case as closed surface integration E dot ds equal to 0, provided the closed surface does not enclose any charge. Provided the closed surface does not enclose any charge. So here also we are getting point-to-point similarity and differences between the electrostatics and the magnetostatics. And I think you students are enjoying the comparison part. And this is the way to study the electrostatics and magnetostatics side by side. Things are very much related. That's why. Okay. Now, in order to apply this Ampere-Circuital law without a high degree of symmetry, in general, we can move but in a slightly different way. For that purpose, let us consider a closed path C enclosing a surface S. This is a closed path C enclosing a surface S. Now from Ampere-Circuital law, we have seen B dot dl equal to mu naught I being the total current encircled by C. I is the total current encircled by C. Now if ds is an elementary surface around a point P, then J, the current density, is defined as the current per unit area is held normal to the direction of J. So, if ds is an elementary surface of area around a point P, then we can consider that J is the current density, that is current per unit area, where the area is held perpendicular to the direction of, where the area is held perpendicular to the direction of J. Now take a look. What about n cap? N cap represents the unit vector which is perpendicular to the ds. So when we are talking about the ds elemental surface with unit vector n cap perpendicular to it on it, naturally we will consider in our due course, that is the aerial vector ds vector. That means we will now consider our aerial vector, the ds vector. So I, the total current, is expressed as J dot ds, because J already mentioned current per unit area. So into area over a closed surfaces, giving us the total current I encircled by the contour C. Now B dot dl equal to mu naught I according to Ampere's circuital law in integral form. B dot dl equal to mu naught I. Let us now replace this I by J dot ds here. So B dot dl equal to mu naught J dot ds. Let us now apply Stokes theorem on the left, because closed loop and open surface is related here. So we have to use the Stokes theorem on the left. B dot dl according to Stokes theorem give us del cross B dot ds. That means curl of B dot ds over the open surface S, where ds I already mentioned, it is the aerial vector representing n cap into ds. So B dot dl will be replaced by del cross B dot ds equal to mu naught J dot ds, and both sides now we have expressed in terms of the surface integration, and it will hold for any surface big or small. It will hold for any surface big or small. So integrands must be equal on both sides. That means del cross B equal to mu naught J. We are getting del cross B equal to mu naught J, which is nothing but all important differential form of Ampere's circuital law. This is nothing but all important differential form of Ampere's circuital law, where we don't need to bother about the symmetry consideration strictly. So we got these as the Ampere circuital law in integral form, closed loop integration B dot dl equal to mu naught I. And here we are getting the Ampere's law in differential form. That means del cross B equal to mu naught J. Now let us come to some other topics in this chapter in the form of potential. In case of electrostatics, you have seen that electrostatic field is very much related to potential in the form of negative gradient. And there we found that electrostatic potential is scalar in character, and where the electrostatic field is a vector, and negative gradient give us the negative gradient of scalar potential give us the electrostatic field, which is a vector. Now what happens here? Magnetic field is there, so definitely we will expect some magnetic potentials to be associated with magnetic field. I think all of you agree with that. Is it okay? So definitely we will expect some magnetic potential corresponding to the magnetic field. Now for that purpose, let us move in the following way. If B represent the magnetic field, we know del dot B equal to 0. That means the solid B is solenoidal, so divergence of B equal to 0. Again, from rule of vector calculus, we know divergence of curl of a vector field is 0. From the rule of vector calculus, we all know that divergence of curl of a vector field is 0. So if you compare both of them, what you will find? B equal to del cross A. You will find B equal to del cross A. This A is called magnetic vector potential. This A is called magnetic vector potential. Naturally, the question will arise, how do you know that it is the magnetic vector potential? Why we will call it as magnetic vector potential? First thing is that magnetic field you can obtain by taking the cross product of del on A, this parameter. So if you take the curl of A, you will get the magnetic field. That means definitely it must be a potential. And why it is vector potential? Because you are using here the curl or vector operation. You are using here the curl or vector operation. That's why A must be magnetic vector potential. Let us cross check it. Okay. Now, a few minutes back, we have found the differential form of the Ampere-Circuital law in the form of del cross B equal to mu naught J. Now, replace B by del cross A. So, we will get del cross A equal to mu naught J. Now, from the rule of vector calculus, del cross A equal to del of del dot A minus del square A. You have proved in first year mathematics. I think you can remember now. Del cross A is found out to be equal to del of del dot A minus del square A equal to mu naught J. That means from Ampere-Circuital law, replacing D by del cross A and using the rule of vector calculus, we are getting del of del dot A minus del square A equal to mu naught J. Now, we use Lorentz gauge condition for vector potential, that is del dot A equal to 0. This is the new information and the new result what we are going to use here, that is del dot A equal to 0 in this expression. So if del dot A equal to 0, known as the Lorentz gauge condition for vector potential, we will get from above del square A equal to minus mu naught J. We will get from above del square A equal to minus mu naught J. Now compare with Poisson's equation in electrostatics. Del square B V equal to minus rho by epsilon naught. Just take a look. Del square V. What about V? The electrostatic potential there. What about epsilon naught? The free space permittivity. What about rho? The volume charge density, the source of electric field. Just take a look. Here, minus sign is there. J is the current density, the source of magnetic field. And what about mu naught? The free space permeability, the property of the magnetic material. So definitely what about A? It must be the magnetic potential. So it is obviously magnetic potential and it is magnetic vector potential because by operating with curl we can get the magnetic field. So this is the expression of magnetic vector potential and we are cross checking it. Yes, that it is the magnetic vector potential. Now for a current free space, del cross B equal to 0. For a current free space from Ampere-Circuital law, we are getting del cross B equal to 0. Again from rule of vector calculus we know curl of grad equal to 0. Again from rule of vector calculus we know curl of grad equal to 0. That grad may be minus grad also. So here because plus and minus grad give us the direction perpendicular to the surface phi equal to constant. Plus means it is upward, minus means it is downward. So there is no harm. You can take curl of plus grad phi or minus grad phi equal to 0. Now if you compare with it, you will get B equal to minus grad phi m. This is the relationship for the magnetic scalar potential phi m with B. Negative sign, why we are using? Because negative sign represent the direction of the field is always from higher to lower potential. The direction of the field is always from higher to lower potential. here phi m is the called magnetic scalar potential because you are taking gradient operation. So by taking the gradient operation on the potential, you are getting the magnetic field. So it is the scalar potential, the magnetic scalar potential. So I think now things are clear to you that there are two potentials for magnetic field. In general, there is the vector potential, that is B equal to del cross A is the vector potential, and under restricted condition, that is for current free space, we are getting the magnetic scalar potential as minus gradient of phi m. Now, let us move to a very important, you can say it is a problem or it is a question in the form of force between two parallel current carrying conductors. In the form force between two parallel current carrying conductors. Now, why I have taken this one? Actually, in the last class, you can remember that we have found force on a current carrying conductor, isn't that? And there I told you that we will use it in our due course to get some very important result. Now today we will go for it, that is in the form of force between two parallel current carrying conductors. Let us consider two parallel current carrying conductors for the purpose 1 and 2 carrying current I1 and I2. The two conductors are of infinite length and let the separation between them is d. Now, the magnetic induction B1 produced by wire 1 at any point on the wire 2. What about that magnetic induction? Mu naught I by 2 pi d according to Biot-Savart's law. And what about the direction? Already we discussed the direction in the last class. It will be along this direction following right-handed corkscrew rule. Now, what about this direction? If you take a look at the coordinate system, then what about this direction? This is negative z. So, to make B1, it is a vector, we have to incorporate the unit vector along the direction of negative z, that is minus k. So, what is B1? The magnetic induction B1 is produced by the wire 1 at any point on the wire 2, that is given by V1 equal to mu naught I1 by 2 pi d into minus k, where k is the unit vector along z. So, the direction is in the minus z direction, so it is minus k. So, force per unit length experienced by wire 2 due to B1. Now, B1 is created here. So, through the where 2 current I is flowing. So, force on a current carrying conductor. In the last class, we have done it. What about that? F equal to IL cross B. The expression we got, F equal to IL cross B. Now, what about this force? Obviously, force will be F2 as the current flowing is I2. So, I. What about that I? I2. L cross B. Now, coming to the point, what about L? You considered infinitely long wire. So, we are considering force per unit length. That means unit length, it will be 1. In which direction current is flowing? It is flowing along the direction of y. So what about the unit vector along that direction? That is j cap. That is the j cap. So we are considering I, that is I2, L, 1j cross B1, what is produced here. So what is F2? F2 is the force which is encountered by this current carrying conductor or wire 2 carrying current I2 in the form of I L cross B. Force per unit length we have taken because length is infinite, that's why. What about that? 1 into j cap. Why j cap? Because it is along the direction of y. So by combining them, if you put the value of B1 here, what you will find? Mu naught I1, I2 by 2 pi d, then we will have j cross k with negative sign, because k will come here. J cross k equal to I, we all know. So with minus I, that means F2 is a force which is working on this where 2 due to the current carrying where 1, and the result is mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d, the magnitude. And what about the direction? Minus I. Now take a look. What about this direction? This is plus x. So the unit vector is plus I. Now it is minus I. So it will be just opposite to it. So it is minus I, means I2 will be attracted towards I1. So force power I2 will be attracted towards I1. Similarly, if we consider the force per unit length experienced by wear 1 due to V2, that means this will produce the field here in the form of V2. The direction will be along this. So what will be the corresponding force on the wear I1? It will be then F1. F1 equal to I1, then 1j cross V2. The expression will be exactly same. Only it will be plus I, because the direction was along positive Z. So in place of minus K, in the expression of V2, we will have plus K. So it will be plus I. So what about the direction of F1? It will be along this side, that is positive X. So it is attractive towards obviously the where 2. So forces are attractive, and since F1 and F2 are equal and opposite, so Newton's third law is obeyed here. In case of anti-parallel current, forces will be repulsive, because this direction will be just the opposite. So in place of 1j, it will be minus 1j. And obviously you will get forces are repulsive. Then you can define 1 ampere using this expression. That is mu naught I1 I2 by 2 pi d from your 12th standard. If two long parallel current carrying wires with currents I1 and I2 kept at 1 meter apart in free space experience a force of attraction per unit length of value 2 into 10 to the power minus 7 Newton, then the current carried by each of them is of 1 ampere. I think all of you can remember, you have done this in your 12th standard. So mu naught is 4 pi into 10 to the power minus 7. D is 1 meter. So what you will get as F? That is 2 into 10 to the power minus 7 Newton, provided I1 equal to I2 equal to 1 ampere. So I think things are clear to you. Let us now move to some important university questions. State Ampere's law in magnetostatics in integral form and obtain its differential form. Already done. Write down the condition of steady state current. Show that Ampere's law implies that the current is in the steady state. The condition of steady state current means del dot J equal to 0. And in case of Ampere's law, you found del cross B equal to mu naught J. So if you take divergence del dot del cross B, you will find mu naught del dot J. Now divergence del dot del cross B, divergence of curl means 0. So you are getting del dot J equal to 0 here. That means Ampere's law implies that the current is in the steady state. What do you mean by magnetic vector potential? Why it is called so? I think no need to discuss once more. What is magnetic scalar potential? Justify its name. So this is also done. And I think everything we have covered here. So thank you, students. We will meet in the next class. Till then, bye.